like, and it keeps going, so.
Whoa!
I'll run through this trail again later.
Yeah. What's up guys, it's Andrew and I'm back with a new video for you guys today, and we have a surprise channel name change. We went from Honda 300L to Motorcycles Off-Road. Now if you had seen my channel trailer back when I started this channel a couple months ago, you know that the reason I named the channel Honda 300L is because I wanted to be clear on what content you will mostly find on this channel. Though not much has changed, ultimately I decided to change the channel to Motorcycles Off-Road, which is the same name as our Instagram and our Facebook fan page. That being said, if you guys would like to see pictures of our bikes, the 300L, stuff we get into, some behind the scenes videos, then check out our Instagram and our Facebook page. I will link them in the first comment below. But about this video, I guess it bothered a small number of people. In my thumbnail for the review of the 300L, I asked the question, best dual sport ever? The awesome thing is I only had like 300 subscribers, and in 2 weeks this video got something crazy like 20,000 views. So a lot of people liked the video and tons of positive feedback. But there was a couple people who just didn't like that I put that in there. And they wanted to say their opinion of what they think the best bike is, and that I was wrong. But it's impossible for me to be wrong. Why? Because it's my opinion. And I put that question on the thumbnail because that's what everybody wants to know. Is this bike good? That's the whole point of the review. But thinking to myself, this might be the best dual sport ever. And in this video, I'm going to do something you're never supposed to do, and that is defend my own personal opinion. In this video, I'm going to give you points on why I think the Honda 300L could be the best dual sport that you can buy today off the lot. I have two purposes and two goals in this video. They are, if you disagree with me, then you can hear my full points here, and you can offer a rebuttal or your argument in the comments below. Or, if you're looking to get a bike, and it might be the Honda 300L, or if you have a Honda 300L, hopefully this video can give you a different outlook on my perspective that might have you thinking about dual sports slightly different. So I feel this video can offer benefit to both groups of people, and if you feel that I'm just wrong, just let me know. I'm fine with that too. All I ask is you just listen to my points and let me know where you disagree. So my number one point, we'll have to reach a common ground, and we'll have to decide what a dual sport really is. And what I would say a dual sport is a street legal motorcycle that is made to be proficient on and off road. That's my definition. Most people would agree with that, but the key point that I want to make is proficient on and off road. I feel like a lot of people think the only thing to a dual sport is something that's a monster off-road but also is street legal. And that's not exactly what I'm talking about. And this is coming from a guy who lives in a state where you could basically almost get any bike street legal. We have no motorcycle inspections, and if you jump through the right amount of hoops, like out of state titles and this and that, you could get a lot of different things put on the road that you couldn't get away with in other states. That being said, that doesn't make them dual sports. That makes them off-road bikes that are street legal. And that's a different bracket in my opinion. Now before I say the next part, I want to extend an olive branch to you guys to drive the KTMs, the Husqvarnas. Those are some badass bikes, and you guys have brass balls for riding those bikes. And that's awesome, and I'm glad you like your bikes. But my opinion is, you wouldn't ride those bikes for a 15-20 mile commute to work, back and forth all week for 2 weeks straight, and then Saturday hit the trails, and then Monday go right back to work again. It's just not something you would do. Most of the time when somebody has a bike like that, not everybody, but most people, they're going to cart it around in the back of their truck when it's time to go ride it. And those bikes rarely are on the pavement or see a long commute. A lot of times the problem with these high performance bikes is the service intervals. Every 8 to 15 hours, you got to change the oil. And they're also pretty much uncomfortable. Generally, the laws of nature apply that when you start to make something more proficient for one task, it becomes less proficient for another. Not everything is just good at everything. And in dual sporting, that applies very much so here. So I made this chart to visually explain exactly where I'm coming from. So hopefully you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about before you completely dismiss the point altogether. And I feel like in this chart, all street legal dual sports can fall in here somewhere. And just like anything else, you probably can't have both. So let's take a look. On the left, we have off-road. All the way to the right, we have road use. Now, what's going to be most proficient off-road is going to be dirt bikes, plated dirt bikes, stuff like that. On the far right, we're still talking about on-off-road bikes in this because, you know, road use could be something like the Honda Goldwing. So in this example, we're talking about bikes that you would take off-road, but how proficient and how comfortable they'd be off-road and on-road. So we're going to talk about adventure touring on the far right, because honestly, they're the most comfortable bikes. I mean, you'll never get one of them down a single trail, but they are kind of like dual sports, and they would be more on the road use side. And I feel like everything else is going to fall somewhere in the middle. So on the far left, dirt bikes, street legal bikes, we can put, let's say, the KDX200. Why would I choose that bike? Because personally I had one. That bike is a trail legend and it's awesome. Once again, it's not overly powerful, but it's light. It has enough power to get you through anything. The older ones weren't even liquid cooled. It wasn't until a couple years in production when they started making them a little bit heavier. And I mean, if you guys could think of anything that's more off-road dual sport, let me know. But I think this is probably a good example of the far left off-road in my little chart here. And then when we go to the far right, we talk about road use, adventure touring. I would say the king of something like this would be the BMW 1250S. This bike has all the smoke, mirror, whistles, everything that will make your pleasurable ride on road for long distances. It's very heavy though, but it'll do really good on unpaved roads for long distances between gas station to gas station, and you could tour across countries. So as these two bikes, I feel like everything falls in the middle, and I put the Honda 300L right in the middle at perfect dual sport range. Why? Because it does both of these things good. This is a bike that you can take off-road. I've proven it. I've taken it through tons of single track, and you could also use it as your commuter. I've seen plenty of people do that. I ride it to work at least 1 or 2 days a week, but my work is like 5 miles away, but you get the point. The bike is fine on the road. The seat's actually pretty comfortable. So when you guys start to talk about something like a KTM 500 EXE or Husqvarna FE350, you're moving more towards the off-road side. I would say somewhere in the middle between the KDX and the Honda 300L. And also with the Honda 300L, I would also put the KLX 300. I think they both fall right in that bracket. Now, when you start to move further right, you're coming to your like Teneres and maybe your KTM Adventure 390s. They're more road use. I think this chart is good because if you put it in perspective of how much road and off-road use you're actually going to do, you could use this chart to figure out exactly what bike is perfect for you. But if you're somebody like me who actually uses this bike as like a 50-50 straight down the middle, maybe a little bit far left of the bracket of perfect use for off-road, then the Honda 300L is a perfect bike. It's one of the most perfect dual sports you can get because you can do both competently. Anyway, as a fun little exercise, let me know what bike you have below and let me know where you think it falls on this chart or where you think I might think it falls on this chart. Because I've had a lot of bikes, but most of the bikes I've had have been older bikes, like from 2000 to 2010 and a lot in the 90s. Now, I would also say anything that's a supermoto is going to fall closer to the road use side, obviously, because this would be similar to you just running bald tires on your dual sport, which is not going to have a great effect off-road. And it did for, I don't know if it was 1 year or a couple years, make a WR250 Supermoto. I guess it didn't sell well because they discontinued it very quickly, but I never got the pleasure to ride that bike, and I wish I did because I personally don't like the WR250, but I think that bike would be pretty awesome. And I also want to add, no matter what bike you ride, even if it is a WR250R or it's something like you only feel comfortable throwing your leg over a TW200, whatever it is, I'm down with it, man. Like, I love this hobby and I would ride with any of you guys. No matter how fast, how slow, whatever. I don't care. If you jump on two wheels and you like to tour, take it off-road, just cruise around your town, you have my respect. There's not a lot of people out there that ride motorcycles, and any of you guys that do, you guys are awesome. All right, I'll be right back in a second for my next point. All right, my point number 2 about the Honda 300L being one of the best dual sports that you can buy today is the price. Now, I know I've talked about price. I know a lot of people have talked about price, but it has to be said. Why would I bring up price in the best dual sport ever comparison? You could honestly be completely dismissive of my first point. You could just say that chart's garbage, it's rubbish, I don't believe it, it doesn't make any sense to me. That's fine. But you can't deny that monetary value on an object is important. Let's put it in perspective for a second. Let's compare once again the Husqvarna and the KTM we talked about earlier. Like most high-performance bikes, they're expensive. You're looking at $11,000, $12,000, maybe even more, depending on what you get as far as features. And for that price, I could buy a Honda 300L, put some Kenda Trackmasters on it, have a blast off-road on the weekends, and buy a Honda 300L Rally and drive that back and forth to work all week long, and have two separate bikes for two separate tasks and just love my life. And I would be paying the same amount of money that you paid for one of your bikes. How is that not a good point when we're talking about the best dual sport? Those bikes cost twice as much money and you're not getting twice as much bike. You may be getting twice as much power, yes, but you're definitely not getting twice as much bike. You could buy the Honda 300L, sink a couple $1,000s in it, and still walk away with $3,000 to $5,000 over the people who bought the 450RL or any Husqvarna or KTM. Or maybe you're like most of us and you don't have a huge budget for expendable BS like a bike, right? Maybe it's gone to whatever other necessity you need in life, so you only have the choice to get one bike. With the Honda 300L costing $5,249, you could save up a respectable $800 plus whatever the state fees and registration are and get an auto loan. Now, if you had perfect credit, you could get 0% interest, sure. Who the hell has that, right? But my credit union, which is actually called Andrew's Federal Credit Union, not even a joke, offers around 3% interest on new bikes. It fluctuates from time to time, but it's generally around 3%. So that means with your down payment, you could get this bike for $20 a week. Most people can afford $20 a week. And with $20 a week, you have a bike that you can ride to work, you have a bike that you can ride off-road, and you could just have a great time. That to me is the second point of why the Honda 300L and Rally may be the best dual sport you could buy today. On to the next point. The next point I have to bring up, once again, service intervals. Why are service intervals so important? Well, once again, so it could be a dual sport. The CRF300L, because it's a stroked out CBR engine, you have the benefit of the low end along with the service intervals of 8,000 miles between oil changes and 16,000 miles between oil change and filter. Now, if you watch my review video, I said I would never do something like this. I'd probably just always change the oil once every 1,000 miles, and definitely before every season when I go riding. And I would always change the filter every time. But the fact of the matter is, I don't have to change this oil every other weekend after riding, like a lot of people do. My buddy Nick, he has an awesome KTM 520 EXC. He changes his oil every 8 hours. That to me is not something I'm looking for. The Husqvarna, every 15 hours. And I just feel like if I had a bike where I had to change the oil, I would almost not want to ride it to preserve the oil life for when I do take it off-road. So that I would get in this weird situation where I'm not actually using the dual sport for dual sport things. I'm using the dual sport as a dirt bike once again. And because the Honda, you can just run it without a care, I think it makes it a more perfect multi-purpose bike. Next, let's talk about reliability. If we were to build a reliability chart, we'd probably start with the TW200. Why? Because that bike's been around forever, it's air-cooled, it's carbureted, it's single-cylinder, it's just gonna last forever. Somewhere on the opposite side of the spectrum, you would have your high-compression, liquid-cooled, very complex bikes. The Honda 300L, though, is gonna fall closer to the TW200. Yes, there's more things to go wrong. You have liquid cooling, you have fuel injection, but you also have an engine that's been tried and true. I was informed that there's a channel called Itchy Boots where this woman has put, they said like 70,000 miles on her 250L. That's insane. And I'm running around with a 286cc version of the same engine. That really gives me confidence in the reliability of this bike. I don't want to spend too much time talking about that because I talked about it before, but that's something I just want to note. And lastly, let's talk about comfort, because I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the Honda 300L is pretty comfortable on road. It's pretty comfortable off-road, has good sized foot pegs, but on road it's not bad. It's got a nice wide seat. It's not the most comfortable thing, but it gets you by. It's a lot more comfortable than any KTM I've ever rode. And as a single cylinder engine, it has counterbalancing for the thumper engine. So what's that mean? It's smooth. I mean, sure, you feel the rattle of a single cylinder. There's no denying it. But I've rode my KTM 640 LC4 from my work to my house, about 5 miles. I've rode my TW200 from my work to my house. And both of those bikes, when I finally got off the bikes, my feet were numb because of the vibration that went from the pegs to my feet of keeping those bikes in higher RPMs for road use. I don't feel that with the Honda. It almost feels like my SV650 on long road trips. But actually, I would have to say the seat's a little more comfortable than my SV650. Once again, if we go to the dual sport chart, for road use, you're going to want comfort. This bike offers comfort. This bike offers, I can drive down the road, see random trails, cut off the road, and just rip through dirt trails, paths, fire cuts, any of that. And that to me is what makes the perfect dual sport. So there you go, guys. There's my points of argument of why I think the Honda 300L can be the perfect dual sport, maybe the perfect dual sport that is out now. If you watched this long, I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video, you found any value in it, or if you watched more than one of my videos, subscribe, turn notifications on because I have more to come. And I promise to stay consistent. And I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, enjoy your bikes, and stay safe out there, guys. My name is Andrew, and thanks for watching.